This is a video about how to do part 1 of graphic notes. Your teacher is going to give you something like this Google document says graphic notes. So there are 4 parts: key points and main idea. Then there's the original drawing. There's a video on that, on how to do that. And then the cross-cutting concepts and summary. If you look at the top part, there is a yellow box with directions. So you can reference that if you need additional support. So for example, 1 says there's a main idea, how to do it, and there's a video you can watch to help you with that. Part 2, there's also a link to an article that the teacher will link to the article, so it's easy for you to cut and paste. This is what the author said, and then your example of how you paraphrased it. I'm going to give a couple tips on how to do paraphrasing, but there's also a support video that goes into more detail here. And once again, when you get to the last part, summaries, there's a video around that as well. We don't need instructions when you submit it, so if you could delete the yellow box as a courtesy to us, it just makes it easier for us to get right to your work and not have to scan down. So for part 1, for most of the times your teacher will have the article linked in here. For this first one for 6th graders, I pre-selected some of the key points that were underlined in brown in the text so that we could really focus on paraphrasing. So I'm just going to kind of go through like 1 or 2 of these examples. So the author said, you also know that when atoms and molecules are heated, they move faster, and when they are cooled, they move slower. So we have a list over here of some of the strategies. Begin at a different point. Use synonyms. You used a varied sentence structure. Maybe you broke long sentences up and combined them, or split sentences up, or removed stuff from sentences that was kind of redundant. So I'm looking at this when you also know that when atoms and molecules are heated, they move faster. So I'm going to start kind of at a different place and kind of switch it up a little bit. So I'm going to be when heated, and then I'm going to kind of go on. So can you think about, you can hit the pause button and think to yourself, what would you write here? Okay, so for example, I'm going to go in and I'm going to be like, when heated, I can just switch it around and go, when heated, atoms and molecules move faster. So this is at least, and I don't need even the second part because it's like when they're cool, they move slower. That's kind of redundant. It kind of says the same thing, but just the opposite, in the opposite manner. So I don't really need that. So I've already kind of shortened it. I'm still keeping the intent of what the author said, but I'm just kind of switching it around a little bit. And then I'm going to go in and so I kind of started at a different point. I kind of did this last one. I broke up, I kind of changed it, the sentence length. So I'm going to look and see if I can do any other things. So is there a synonym? So I could just be like, instead of atoms and molecules, I could just rearrange that. Oops, sorry. And say molecules and atoms. Okay, so that's another thing I could do. So just kind of varying it from what the author said to put it kind of, even though it's not, just it switches it up a little bit. And then I could also think, well, is there actually a synonym for molecules and atoms? So you can kind of pause for a second and think if you can think of that. It's like, oh yeah, particles. So I could use particles here instead. So I'm going to use a synonym. I can, and also instead of saying move faster, I could say move quicker. So once again, you're looking to see when you're finished, are you keeping the intent of what the author said? So is it still scientifically accurate? And is it still on point with what the author was saying? So in this case, it's like, and it looks different from what the author said. So it's like, yeah, it looks different from what the author said. And it's, but still says what they said. So this would be a good paraphrasing. And you could see, you could have stopped at any one of those points upon what I was saying, but I'm just kind of going to the full end of what you could do to kind of put things in your own words. Okay, so I just wanted to hope that's helpful. So once again, as I'm doing it, I'm kind of using some of these ideas to kind of help me out.